What's up guys, my name's Diachronic Ghost here on this Destiny 2 video, and today we're going to be talking about the best loadouts for the Last Wish raid. Now I'm going to be going over every single encounter through all of the different guns, the subclasses, the armors, the exotic armors, everything that I know about and why you'd use certain things in different places, and in a nice broad spectrum of exactly what I would use in the Last Wish raid, and I do use every single time. Now before I get started, I would like to thank you guys for watching. Without your support and the support from my sponsor today, Mashdrop, I couldn't keep doing what I do. And today I wanted to show you something really special. Mashdrop and Sennheiser have teamed up to make a really cool headset. Check it out. What the heck? Why can't I hear anything? Is my sound broken? I don't want to go back and find a new headset. Oh, I gotta go get one. I gotta go through all this hassle and looking through everything and figuring out what's right, what are the best specs. Do I go with something pink? No, not pink, no pink. No, pink, not pink. Mashdrop with Sennheiser. I know Sennheiser, they make some pretty good stuff. 120 bucks, 5-star rating, 16,000 sold. These things are flying off the shelf. And I gotta say, this thing looks really comfy. Is that velvet? You know what? Let's do it. I'm getting this one. All right, let's try these puppies on and see what we got. Play. Nice choice in headset. I actually just got one myself. Wanna know what makes these really awesome? Pretty much everything about them. First off, $120 means you're not going to be getting a really cheap travel headset that might break immediately, and also it's not $300. Dropping it or losing it won't literally break the bank. The greatest technology mankind has to offer at my... Oh god, no, don't break, holy god. It also has high quality sound from Sennheiser, one of the most reputable high quality audio manufacturers on the planet. It also has an open back design, so you can actually hear everything around you while you're playing, even at maximum volume. Sometimes it even scares me myself what I hear around this house. The heck? Who was that? There's nobody home! And one of the best parts for us gamers is you can actually have this thing on for 5 hours at a time, and it's still super comfortable. Oh, wow, that raid took forever! What was that, like 5 hours? Oh man, I gotta go pee. I gotta pee. Nah, I don't need that in the bathroom. No, I don't need that. What a stupid skit. Oh man, I like it. Let's do it. Moving on, let's actually talk about the actual topic of this video, raid loadouts. Now, the first thing I wanted to talk about is going to be the general requirements, the general weapons, subclasses, armors, the legendary and exotic armors I recommended. This is kind of like a general idea of what you could and should use in the raid. Now, this is in no way something you can use universally across every encounter. After going over the general information, I'm going to be going over each encounter as I go along. Certain weapons are just better used in different parts, and I do switch them as I go along in the raid. But hopefully I will not be as expansive and in-depth as I was last time, because I did rant for I think 30 minutes, I think that video was. So if there's something that I missed, let me know in the comments down below, and I'd be more than happy to explain certain things in case you were wondering. The Last Wish raid is the most recent raid they came out with Forsaken, and its minimum is around 520 power. However, I would personally recommend around 550 to 570 because of the fact that you can actually more comfortably damage and kill off the first few encounters. That being said, I highly recommend you actually go out there and do those, because a lot of people wait until they're like 600 power before even trying it, and the raid is probably the best power boost in the game. So definitely go out there, finish the first few encounters, and when you get stuck, stop and wait for the next week, and just keep on doing that every week and you'll get power very quickly. Next up, let's talk about guns. In general, this raid is more of a close to mid-range. Most pulse rifles and hand cannons will work quite well. Solar damage is also preferred because of the fact there are only solar shields in the raid. As far as primary weapons go, you can go with a lot of different ones, but some of the ones that I use a lot are like Chattering Bone, Duke, 10 Paces, Midnight Coup, Tiger Spite, very good auto rifle. Not a lot of people use auto rifles. Things like Bygones. There's a lot of things you can use. These are just some that I use a lot. As far as specials go, Ikelo Shotgun being the #1. After that, we have Badlander, Zenith of your kind for other shotguns, and finally Coldheart. Very surprising exotic. If you have it, you might want to give it a try. And lastly, for the heavies, things like Sleeper Simulant, Whispers of the Worm, Linear Fusion Rifles, Darcy, Tractor Cannon, these are all fantastic. A note on Tractor Cannon is that it did get an update a while ago where instead of just 50% more void damage, it also applies a debuff that makes them more vulnerable by 33% to every other damage type. So That has not been used by a lot of people, but I highly recommend you give it to one person on your squad because that is a lot more damage than you just bringing one Whisper. Especially if you don't have the Whisper, it's just a nice thing to have. Next up, let's talk about the legendary armor. Firstly, you should always go with the thing that has the most power, but if you have certain choices, go with things that have ammo reserves, like sniper rifle reserves or shotgun reserves. Because of the fact you start off with maximum ammo right off the beginning, you don't really need scavenger because you can pretty much just expend your entire ammo by the time you finish that encounter. And with more reserves, you can use it more freely. Next up, let's talk about the subclasses and the exotic armors I recommend for each one of the classes, starting off with the Titan. As far as exotic armors go, things like Synthoceps, very nice for extra super damage, Hellfire Heart, just getting tons and tons of thermite grenades, and finally Lion's Rampart. If you're having trouble with certain jump puzzles in the raid, or if you just want to move faster, Lion's Rampant is very, very good. I think I called it Lion's Rampart, didn't I? Damn it, I do that every time. As far as subclasses go, Code of the Siegebreaker, which is going to be the Hammer Strike code, and Code of the Missile, which is going to be the new Missile Smash class that does incredible damage. Both of these are very good at ad killing as well as boss damage. In general, this Sentinel class didn't really have a lot to offer, so I'm not really recommending much from it. Next up, let's talk about Hunters. First off, Celestial Nighthawk is very, very nice, making it so you can do double damage with Gunslinger. Worm Husks help you survive with those dodges. Orpheus Rigs, again, pretty obvious. Getting your tether back very easily gets you tons of orbs. Shards of Galanor, a new Forsaken exotic, makes it so you can get your super back from Blade Barrage kills, which makes it so you can use Blade Barrage a lot. As far as subclasses go, we have Way of the Trapper, Way of 1,000 Cuts, Way of Sharpshooter, and in general, I wouldn't really recommend Arcstrider. There's not a lot of scenarios in this raid where ads are really that big of a problem. Maybe the second encounter with Ochi, but in that particular encounter, Blade Barrage, you just get so many super kills and everyone is just barreling down giving you orbs and you get tether from your hunters. You're never really going to need that much arc staff. It's really not that useful. And lastly, the Warlock, starting off with the exotic armors with Skull of Dire Ahunkara, basically the Orpheus Rigs of Nova Bomb kills. Next up, Crown of Tempest, very underrated, gets you your super very, very quickly. Alternately, if you're using Chaos Reach, go with Geomag Stabilizers. If you don't have a lot of these things, I Have Another World, pretty much from the campaign, universally useful, although not particularly interesting. Sun Bracers, if you want 6 solar grenades for 1 melee kill, very fun to use. Phoenix Protocol, so you can get your Well of Radiance very, very easily. Just get your kills and assists in it, and you got yourself a full super very quickly. Pretty much the #1 I would recommend if you're using Well of Radiance. And finally, Lunafaction Boots is kind of on the fence. It used to be the #1 Warlock exotic, but with Whispers of the Worm and the fact that it messes with the free ammo with that, I would not really recommend it. If you're using Whispers of the Worm, don't use Lunafaction. If you're not using Whispers of the Worm, do use. As far as subclasses go, Attunement of Grace, which is going to be your Radiance, Attunement of Control, which is going to be your Chaos Reach Laser, which is probably the best DPS super in the game right now, and Attunement of Hunger. If you find that you die a lot, Hunger is very nice for its Devour, for keeping you alive, lots of really good healing, as well as the fact that you get a Vortex Nova Bomb, which is a pretty good damage dump. So now that we talked universally across all the encounters, each encounter will be pretty straightforward as long as you just follow the curve. Now that we've talked about the universal, I'm not going to be very verbose about each encounter. I'm mostly going to be talking about what does and what doesn't work and why it does or doesn't work. For example, Whisper of the Worm is not successful on every single encounter. Let's go ahead and get started with the first encounter in the raid, known as Kali the Corrupted. She's a 560 boss, and the best way to damage her is probably going to be Sleeper Simulant, Shotguns, Supers, and Hammer Strike. She can be hit by Hammer Strike, so do hit her with Hammer Strike. As far as guns go, close range, pretty much anything works for my universal list. However, the heavy weapons, I do not recommend using a Sniper Rifle. Because she is a Tekkin, she likes to do a ritual, she likes to bob her head back and forth like a rock concert going, wasa, lasa, wasa, wasa. Don't use snipers on her. You're gonna miss a lot. Linear fusion rifles like the Sleeper, a lot easier to hit because of the fact of the incredible aim assistance. And then lastly, honestly, hit her with Tractor Cannon. She stands still, you can hit her quite easily, she'll not melee you away. Hit her with Tractor Cannon, you do a ton of extra damage. As far as subclasses go, Code of Siegebreaker and Code of Missile, very good boss damage, as well as the fact that you need Hammer Strike. For the Hunter, Way of the Trapper is very useful, basically trapping that pit of scions every time you exit the cubbyhole, gives everybody supers. Way of 1,000 Cuts and Way of Sharpshooter is definitely good boss damage on top of that. As far as Warlocks go, Attunement of Grace, having at least one Radiance every single encounter of the raid is very useful. Attunement of Control, incredible boss DPS, you'd be very surprised how much you can do with that. And finally, Attunement of Hunger, if you find that you die a lot, Attunement of Hunger with Devour, as well as a decent damage dump with the Nova Bomb, is very good to have. Moving on to the second encounter with Ochi, a 565 boss, very similar as the previous one. She is again a Techian, but in this one, for boss damage, I recommend using shotguns because they are the highest burst damage you can do in the game. After that, supers, there's a lot of supers like Missile, Blade Barrage that can do a lot of burst dump. And for the heavies, go with Sleeper Simulant and Hammer Strike her ass because she can be hammer struck because doing extra damage is fantastic. And of course, using Sleeper Simulant instead of these snipers because again, she goes to rock concerts, she likes to bob her head. You're probably not going to get along with the Whisper on her fight. Other than that, you have a pretty close range fight. You need to be moving fast, so anything with good mobility, good handling is going to be very nice. As far as subclasses go, pretty much the same as before. However, in this fight, every one of your supers should be pretty much used for killing off the adds, and every one of your bullets from your special and your heavy weapon should be used for boss damage. Barrel through those enemies as fast as possible so you can get through without getting wiped by the wipe mechanic. That being said, Wave the Trapper with the tether is going to be very useful for giving everybody supers as much as possible. Moving on to the third encounter known as Morga, the first encounter that we're not fighting little girls that like to bob their head at a rock concert. We have a very large crit on this boss, so back to Whispers of the Worm. Morga is a 570 boss with 570 adds, so at this point your team, if you're around 550, you're going to start to break apart, but you can definitely still beat him. It's just going to be a little bit more difficult. As far as boss damage go, honestly, I would go with the long range strategy where you use Whispers of the Worm and Sleeper Simulant. There's an alternate strategy where you use Ikello Shotgun and Hammer Strike right next to him, right behind him, and you dump in him. But if you don't have a high enough power and everyone doesn't have Ikello Shotgun, you're not going to be able to get that DPS out you need to be able to kill him. As far as guns go, this is a close to mid-range engagements because these scions are a little bit more spread out, they're a little farther away. You're going to perhaps consider using pulse rifles for this fight. As far as subclasses go, you're probably not going to be using your supers very much. The only subclass that's really critical here is going to be the Well of Radiance for when it comes to the DPS. But everything else pretty much used the same way as before. Use your tethers on groups of enemies, use your supers on groups of enemies. You're probably not going to be using the super on the boss very much. The boss should be entirely and solely handled with your heavy weapon damage. And when you go to do your heavy weapon, everybody just collect on your Well of Radiance, you know, do everything you possibly could, do your Empowering Rift, and power everybody to do the most damage, and he has a huge crit spot, so Whisper of the Worm is going to dominate. Moving on to the fourth encounter, which is going to be the Vault. There is no boss in this particular area, but there are going to be 575 adds, so at this point, you're probably not going to be able to do it at a 550. Instead of boss damage, I decided to talk about the elite damage because of the fact there is no boss. There's going to be a couple of yellow health knights in this area that you need to do some pretty impressive damage dump on them, so make sure you pay attention. For that damage, I recommend things like shotguns, supers, and Sleeper Simulant. If you have a rocket launcher like Wardcliff, this also works pretty well as well. As far as guns go, this is more of a mid-range to long range. In general, I still use hand cannons here because I love hand cannons, but moreover, the pulse rifles as well as some scout rifles might do really well here. In general, if you're going for scout rifles, make sure you go for the faster fire rate because those scions divide faster than some of the slower fire rates can fire at. And again, because of the fact there is no boss here, Whisper of the Worm is not going to be very useful. Just go for whatever is most useful at killing those yellow health knights. As far as subclasses go, for the Titan, again, Coda Siegebreaker, Coda Missile, really good for killing adds as well as just in general for staying alive. For the Hunter, Wave 1,000 Cuts and Wave the Warrior both work really nice. Wave the Warrior being the Arc Staff because of the fact there is no boss here. You know, having a roaming super can definitely help and do really well against the Knights as well. As far as Warlock goes, Attunement of Control for the Knight that comes in because of the impressive damage you can do with that, and Attunement of Hunger for being it so you can heal very effectively. In general, Radiance is not really useful here. You can still use it, but you're not going to find that much use of it. And finally, we arrive at the Riven section. Now, this is not the final encounter for the raid, but it is going to be the most important encounter. Riven is a 590 boss with 580 adds, so she's going to be a little bit more difficult to damage than the adds around her. As far as boss damage goes, Whispers of the Worm is going to be your very, very best bet entirely. Alternately, you can go with linear fusion rifles and some high-powered sniper rifles like Borealis. Now, the reason I removed removes some of the other options while they're still viable is because of the fact that she has those eyes. Because of the fact that if you hit the wrong eye at the wrong time, you're gonna wipe the entire team. So anything with AoE like rocket launchers and anything with explosions or anything that has a big spread on it like Blade Barrage is gonna be very detrimental. On top of that, Sleeper Simulant likes to bounce, so you might accidentally hit an eye, however it is not super likely. As far as guns go, I highly recommend some mid-range guns. Close range is gonna start to fall off. There's some snipers in certain areas, some Scions are a little far away, some Ogres are a little far away, so go with mid-range. The Chattering Bone is my favorite in this particular location. As far as special weapons go, you can use anything you want really. You don't really need any special weapon in this part because your boss damage is gonna be handled with your heavy weapon and all the adds are gonna be handled with your primary. Special is really not that important here. However, if you don't have a Whisper, Borealis works pretty well, and there is a Fire Shield in there to get your Ionic Return. And finally, as far as subclasses go, for the Titan, go with Code of the Siegebreaker. It's very good at killing off those Ogres. As far as Hunter goes, wave the Trapper if you find that you need more super energy. However, super energy is really not that useful in this fight. Wave the Sharpshooter is very nice with Celestial Nighthawk for doing damage directly into Riven's mouth. And again, do not use Blade Barrage for risk of hitting an eye. We've had this happen so many times. As far as Warlocks go, Attunement of Grace, having those Radiance Rifts, pretty much the #1 thing you should have in this fight. And secondly, Attunement of Hunger, because of the fact, again, you can heal yourself and stay alive is very, very important. I'm honestly very surprised how infrequent people use Attunement of Hunger. Devour is so powerful, y'all. And the reason you're not using Attunement of Control is because it's kind of an AoE hit. You might accidentally hit an eye when you're going for the boss damage. If you feel comfortable using it, go for it, but honestly, it's not worth it. Just use your Whisper. And finally, the very last encounter in Riven, after you kill that son of a gun, after you kill that daughter of doom, rip out her heart and carry it with you and dunk it in a bowl so that the Techians can eat it. I actually have no idea what they do with it, but it's basically grab it and run the hell out. This encounter on the run out will have 580 adds. There is no boss in this area, however there will be yellow health knights, so using shotguns, sleepers, supers, Wardcliff is very useful here. As far as guns go with anything from close to mid-range. You're just going to be moving very quickly, so just use whatever has the best handling. And again, because of the fact there are no bosses here, Whisper the Worm and the snipers are not going to be as useful. As far as subclasses go with everything that's a roaming super, anything that can last a long time and kill lots of adds. So as far as Titans go, Code of the Siegebreaker is probably going to be my favorite. For the Hunters, wave 1,000 cuts and wave the Warrior. Wave the Warrior being the Arc Staff, lasting a very long time, killing lots of adds. Very, very useful. Tether's not as useful because you're going to be moving very quickly. You're not going to have a chance to get those orbs. As far as Warlock goes, pretty much a huge change, which is going to be Attunement of Fire, pretty much your standard Dawn Blade. Get kills, get your longer Dawn Blade. Attunement of the Elements, which is going to be your regular Stormcaller. Attunement of Fission is going to be your new Void Warp. And finally, Attunement of Hunger. If you find, again, if you die a lot, you're going to have plenty of adds to kill, get your Devour, stay alive. And that is it. That is the end of the video. Hashtag made it to the fluffers. You guys earned it to make it all the way through here. What is it, like 15 to 20 minutes by this point? Holy hot damn, this is a very long video. I feel uncomfortable making anything more than like 10 to 15 minutes. I gotta be honest with you. But that's it. That's the video. Again, in the comments down below, let me know if there's something I missed. If you're a veteran player, let me know if I said something wrong. However, I believe most of this information to be pretty accurate and pretty useful for people that still need more information to play the raid. And again, thank you to Massdrop, my sponsors on today's video. If it weren't for the support that these guys offer me, I wouldn't be able to keep doing what I'm doing. But that's it. That's the video. Hope you guys did enjoy. My name's been Chronic, and I'll see you guys on the next one.